I Have a Dream, a speech by Reverend Martin Luther King at the March on Washington. I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history for our nation.
5 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree is a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames on withering injustice. It came as joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still not free.
100 years later, the life of the Negro is still badly crippled by the manacles of segregations and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of vast oceans of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languish in the corners of America's society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition.
In a sense, we come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of a republic wrote two magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to file heir.
This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be granted the maniable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is obvious today, that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her sentence of color and concert, instead of honoring this sacred obligation. America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds.
But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great bowls of opportunity of this nation. So we've come to cash in this check, a check that will give us open the riches of freedom and security of justice.
We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is not time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood.
Now is the time to make justice of reality for all good children. It will be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This wilting summer of Negros' legitimate disconnect will not pass until there is an emboldening autumn of freedom and equality. In 1963 is not an end but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negros needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual.
There we will neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is guaranteed the citizenship rights. The whirlwind of revolt will continue to shake and the foundations of our nation until the red days of justice emergence.
And that is something that I must say to my people who stand of the war threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of growthful debts. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred.
We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not let us distrust our white people. For many of white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny.
They have to come realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must make the plea that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotes of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality.
We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels of the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a small ghetto to a large one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their adulthood, are robbed of their dignity by things starting for the whites only.
We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negro in New York believes he has nothing for which to vote.
No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulation. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering.
Continue to work with the fight that honored suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi, go back to Alabama, go back to South Carolina, go back to Georgia, go back to Louisiana, go back to the slums and ghettos of all northern cities, knowing that someone this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair.
I say to you today, my friend, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day of the red hills of Georgia's sons, of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppressions, will be transformed into a oasis of freedom and justice.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious races, with its governor having his lips dipping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers.
I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough place will be made plain, and the crooked place will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is the fight that I go back to the south with.
With this faith, we will be able to heal out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform
the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day.
This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, this of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side, let freedom ring. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
Let freedom ring from the hectating Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California.
But not only that. Let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from the Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring.
When we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every city and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up a day when
all of good children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics will be able to join hand and sing in words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at least, great, good and mighty, we are free at least.